Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have ESTPs versus ESFPs. And so, Daniel, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Sure. Daniel Storm, best known as being married to Susan Storm of PsychologyJunkie. That's my claim to fame. I'm gonna use it as much as I can. No, ESTP, figured that out about 10 years ago, I guess, roughly. And excited to be here.
Yeah, and check out PsychologyJunkie. And Taylor?
My name's Taylor. I run FlowState. It's a channel. ESTP 8 Wing 7 Sexual Social.
Excellent. Yeah, and check out Taylor's channel. And Mariana?
Hey, I'm Mariana. I'm an ESFP, Enneagram 2 Wing 3. Thanks for having us, Joyce. This is fun. I love this SE Dom. I feel like we're all ADD right now, too. We're all moving. And so, yeah, I'm here for it. I'm glad that, I feel like I'm in, safe company right now. So, thanks. I'm excited.
I love the company, too. And Jethro?
There's always somebody moving around when we do these, even just the ESFPs. Always somebody in a car, moving around. I love it.
He's got the channel jetplane48. He's an ESTP. We don't know his Enneagram, and there's a light behind his head.
Cool. Yeah, and check out Jet's channel. And John?
Oh, obviously I'm John, ESFP, also an 8 Wing 7 Sexual Social. So I'm curious to see what the similarities are between me and this guy. That'll be fun to check out throughout this talk.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd love to uncover that mystery too.
I am an ESTP and just fucking live life. That's pretty much it.
Love it.
We can use my version.
That's lovely, Jet. Hi, my name's Joyce, and I'm a certified MBTI practitioner, and I facilitate the MBTI in organizations. And today we're here to discuss ESTP versus ESFP to compare and contrast the two types. And we'll start off talking about these two types' auxiliary function. For the ESFP, the auxiliary function is FI, introverted feeling. And for the ESTP, their auxiliary function is TI, introverted thinking. And so we'll compare these two in the second slot. And so any thoughts, everyone?
TI, for me, is all about making sure that what I'm doing is accurate. I know accuracy is probably an overused term when it comes to TI, but it's a good term because I do feel like it's a good description of what TI kind of brings to the table. When it's paired with SE, I feel like it's accuracy of movement, making sure that whether it's fine detail or large movement, it's all done correctly and as precisely as possible.
If I'm interacting with someone and I'm trying to figure out which type they are, I haven't really thought about how to articulate the difference because it's mostly visceral to me. But it seems like when I meet, let's say I'm at work and an ESFP is trying to get me on board with whatever they're doing versus an ESTP, it seems like the ESTP is going to focus on the mechanics of the thing. And the ESFP is going to focus on the relationship and then follow up with the mechanics of the thing. So I don't know if that clarifies, but that seems to be sort of the loose approach that each one would take. And like I said, in the moment, it's a very visceral realization, but
that seems like a dichotomy difference. So feelers tend to start with the relationship, whereas thinkers just generally start with mechanics.
Right. And I assume that if the mechanics are sound, nobody's going to argue with it because it's sound through and through. And then the relationship will follow or it won't, but it's not important to the situation at hand.
I'm dying at Jet down here.
Hi, guys.
Hey, your hair looks great.
It really does.
It does.
Okay, so yeah, I'm an ESTP. I get SXSP often, but yeah, that's my little intro. That's pretty much it.
That's good to know. And so how does FI feel like, ESFPs?
I hate to say everything it comes down to those silly words that we use, but like authenticity or accuracy, you know, like we label them and then we're stuck with them, but it really does like fit that. And I think like authenticity paired with SE is very much like we will do what we want to do, and our action is like based off of how we're feeling about what we're doing. But as an ESFP, I feel like often people will be like, why are you doing it that way? Like what drives you to do that? And I'm like, that's what I feel like doing. Like it is very much based off of like, I feel like I am supposed to be doing this, so I'm going to do it.
Interesting. Is it like you don't really need a reason for what you feel? Like what you feel can stand on its own?
That's kind of how I function. Mariana, I don't know. Are you similar to that?
I think this honestly probably boils down to a difference between our Enneagram types of me being a 2 and you being an 8, possibly. It's funny. I had an interview with Daniel and his wife in the past week, and also with Joyce. We did the ESFP recording yesterday or 2 days ago. And to me, FI feels like just kind of on its own or as an auxiliary before you consider SE. It feels like organization of like just introspection, introspective organization, maybe, where I kind of picture like a filing cabinet of going in and kind of organizing everything. And if you can stay on top of that, to me, it feels like it is kind of accuracy in some ways, in the sense I always kind of usually know where I land on something. I'm not going to project it onto anybody else, but I kind of know usually where I stand or how I feel about something, if it's important to me. I think maybe that paired with SE makes you a little more present one-on-one when you're dealing with people. Maybe with TI, it's a little more objective. I took a quiz like through work one time, or it was like this women's circle, like so they could put you in different groups. It was like, do you like managing people or projects? And I'm thinking, I feel like TI, possibly, maybe that's a bad like explanation, would probably say projects. I did people. I'd rather work with people because that's subjective. And I feel like I can influence that better than like something that's objective. But yeah, I think FI and TI have so many correlations in the sense they're both very subjective processes. They're completely different, and I don't understand TI at all, to be honest, but I do feel like it's very subjective. And sometimes it's really hard to explain to someone else like why you are making a decision that you're making, because they don't have all the data that you looked at, like this data set that's personal to you.
The difference between projects and people is actually the dichotomy of thinking and feeling in general. Like thinkers just tend to focus more on like the mechanics and projects, whereas feelers are more about the relationships and people first. So it's like what you do first, like everyone does everything, but like where is that attention? Yeah. You make an interesting point about how like they're both subjective. And so maybe we could parse this out. Like how is FI subjective and how is TI subjective? And how would you guys go about defining how they're subjective?
I'll like for me, just to follow just all my FI thing, my spiel, and I'll quit talking, is it's subjective in the sense it's like my life experiences and how I organize those and like what that means. And I mean, it's subjective in that way. Like no one's been taking the steps in my shoes. Like that's no judgment. I'm not saying I'm better or I'm worse than anybody, but like it's subjective in the sense just that like I only know what I've experienced, and it's subjective in that way.
I think TI users will have kind of a hard time coming to terms with the fact that TI is subjective, because it feels like it's an objective internal valuation process. It feels like you're following the rules of logic. So even though we know it's objective, it feels sterile.
Yeah, it's hard to take what I've learned and amassed information wise through my TI, organized it internally, and made sense of it on my framework, and had it proved to be accurate over and over again by other experiences, to then say that it's subjective when it's been proven. It feels much more like a pure logic, because it does discount the emotional side of things, right? Like that's something that it's like, if I make a decision, it's about what makes the most sense, not about what people want the most. You know, what people weigh in on it has very little value to my final decision.
Do you find yourself good at reading the room when you, like, if you speak in front of a group of people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's tertiary FE playing there.
Do you
know,
think what makes the most sense? Like, what makes the most sense to you, though, and that's subjective?
I mean, I guess, but it's
less subjective than FI is, though, to be fair.
No. I mean, you bring up a valid point, but to me, yes, it is subjective to my terms of logic, but I try to make my terms of logic as accurate as possible with all the data I've collected over my entire lifetime, trying to refine my knowledge to pure truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like trying to make it hard to argue against truth because it should be universal.
You want it to be mathematical. It should be like an equation, and you try to cook off the sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is such a good way of putting TI, flow state. It's like a mathematical equation where you try to cook off the sentiment. That is perfect. And so I have a friend called Lijo, and how she like differentiates TI and FI is like, she says like FI is purity of heart and like TI is purity of logic. So it's like they're trying to get to that purity of that thing, but one is with like logic and one's with your heart. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Does that not?
No, absolutely. Sometimes I feel like from like just some of the personal work that I've done, and I'll talk to friends and they're like, wow, well, you just said, like, you made this point, it kind of like put me in touch with a feeling, and it's kind of a universal truth of a feeling of like how humans are and how it's like, to me, that's just been kind of my experience, but I feel like it is kind of a universal like truth for humans. And maybe it's a systems like play at work, just for how we act inherently. So sometimes I do feel like what I say from an FI standpoint, like when I'm talking like to good friends or like we're having deep conversations, it does feel like I'm expressing a universal truth. But at the same time, I know it's so subjective because it's my experience and I'm kind of not projecting onto anybody else, but that I have kind of gathered some universal truths from that experience, if that makes sense.
I've been dating an ENFP for three years now. FI and TI work pretty similarly. It's just like breaking down emotion versus breaking down logic. So that's kind of how I understand it.
Yeah, I think you find it values-based versus information or logic-based is going to be kind of the tipping point.
I think that for FI users, though, they do treat FI as a universal, as we would treat logic. And I think that that's where because my ex-wife is an ESFP, and every time we'd have a disagreement, it would break down to, how are you not using your heart, basically, in this process? I'm thinking, how the fuck are you not clearing that baggage out of the discussion first?
I've dated 2 ESTPs, and I'm not gonna lie, but those were the types of like when we get in an argument, it was those same exact things because it felt so detached.
Right. Those
are some of the most fun relationships I had because it fun in the sense that it got me out of my head just as a feeling user. But no, I know exactly what you mean. We would end up butting heads pretty quickly.
I kind of agree. This is like my point of view, but ESTPs in relationships view their partner as like, this is going to sound so abusive, things. This is like an unhealthy relationship versus like ESFPs look at their partners like toys.
What do you wait? What do you mean by toys?
Yeah, you should switch back on and explain that out more.
Yeah, you can't go.
Yeah. So toy being like you just toy with them like that. Like this is just an unhealthy like view of it, but toy as in, like you toy like how a cat toys with like its prey before it like kills it, right? Versus like ESTPs when they're in relationships, especially really unhealthy ESTPs, look at people in general as like things, playthings. You know, they're very similar, but the meaning of the word or the meaning of each one is not too dissimilar from each other.
My ESTP brother has like the ESTP like side that you mentioned, Jet.
I think the SE's place here is the intake of information, because we use that word quite a bit here, and it's just information, right? And we said information and logic fit hand in hand, but I think the SE is what takes in everything around us, every micro detail, every micro expression, everything that we're interacting with, like that is the information. It is the heart or head center that is dealing with the information that breaks the FI and TI apart. So we all take in the same information. Well, as SE users, at least, we're taking in the same information. We're breaking down every micro piece of information that we see, but it's how does this make me feel versus what is the logical thing here? Like, and that's how we move forward. The best thing about an SE user, though, is that they move forward. There isn't a whole lot of like, let me break this down. It's more of like, this is the next step.
So more of an application of like the information. You mean like how we're actually going to use it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What we're going to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, something, Daniel, I've been thinking of since I was talked with you and Susan last week was, I think Joyce and I kind of touched on this other day, was at what point, I mean, I know there's not like a set age, but like you and I had so many similarities. So just a quick background, me and Daniel are talking about like his wife is doing this amazing work about just like children, like how they learn in the different types. And so we were the SE representatives. And I feel like me and Daniel so got each other like through that 0 through 18 years. I mean, we didn't go beyond that because that's not the point of like the work she's doing. It's supposed to be I think we focus on like 7 years old to 16 years old.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I felt like, dude, I know that guy, like we understand it's so SE. And it's just so weird to me from dating ESTPs. I'm like, at what point? Because there begins to get a very like, it's a different approach or a different take or understanding of things later in life, obviously, as you mature and you develop your auxiliary, where I'm like, it's just, to me, it was just kind of a crazy and like cool realization of how SE DOMs, no matter if it's ESTP or ESFP, have so like just the info, like taking in information, like John was saying, we all are taking in the same thing. We all have this SE kind of aggressiveness or aggression. But at what point, like, do we become so different, you know? Because FI and TI do feel so different to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think having our function stacks aligning between our judging and perceiving functions even lining up help to make it seem similar as well, right? Because we're both lead perceivers. Yeah. And so with it being perceiver, you know, and both our judging functions in the middle, I think that kind of helps balance to make it seem more similar. Yeah. Because we're processing information at the same kind of rate, if that makes sense. Because we're taking it in primarily, making an internal judgment on it and acting on it, right? And so it's very much as opposed to somebody who's lead judger, where they're making decisions externally. We're doing that all internally. So I think that helps to make us seem more similar, which does make it harder to differentiate.
Yeah, that's such a great
sometimes.
Point. Yeah.
So I was wondering, what is similar about like you all as children then? What was so like incredibly similar that you guys are like, wow, we are like the same person? Like,
can I back up really quick just for a quick second?
Sure.
Jet, my question, I think I understand. So when you're saying a toy, you mean like a living thing that we can manipulate and play with, kind of almost control to our point. And an item is something that is literally just to be used.
You're right. It's an item, i.e. a tool. Right. A tool that we can use to progress our selfish advances. And while that sounds wrong, everybody uses tools in life, but they're just too afraid to tell the truth. I mean, if you look at like bosses use you as tools to accomplish what managers, for example, right? So on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. So now I caught it. Like I was sitting here trying to think about it, and I was like, I understand, because so we're talking about FI, and we're like, okay, so it's alive and it makes its own decisions. But how can I influence those decisions? And then you look at TI, and you're like, how can I use that instead of letting it make its decision? Like, so I get the unhealthy is what you were saying. But I also now understand toy versus item. It took me a second.
I couldn't put it into words. I have shit for brains when it comes to explaining things, but it all makes sense up here. That's what happens when you have like FI or TI. This is what I've come to understand. If you have one of those two functions in either the DOM or aux, it could just be a me thing and how I perceive people, but it just seems like everything works perfectly in here. But the moment it comes out your mouth, it's fucking garbage. And I don't know. I'm sure other people here could kind of relate. I'm gonna go check on my food. I'll be back.
Everybody keeps disappearing. I don't think it was garbage. It just took me a second to catch up. I always feel like I'm so unintelligent compared to everybody that you bring on, Joyce. And so I always feel like I'm sitting here like trying to retrace the steps so that I can catch up. And so he's like, well, it sounds like garbage when it comes out. And I'm like, no, actually, that was really smart. Like,
Everything you guys are saying are really smart. I noticed that like people who are feeler higher up, like they tend to doubt their competence a lot. Like when I invite them on, they'll always go like, Joyce, I feel like I was stupid. I'm like, no, you're just a feeler and you're doubting your key.
no, this is the corner, you'll be okay. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
The last question you would ask was like what Daniel and I had in common. And the main thing that stuck out to me, Daniel, at least, was that like in a situation, like kind of not a crisis necessarily, but like when there's a call to action and it's all of a sudden, and I think Susan, your wife, kind of picked up on this, like what? It's like all the fog clears and I can't, it's like you're in a vacuum and like you can't, it's been like we're almost like the sound goes out. Like if I don't need to hear noise, I'm not going to listen to hear the noise. It's like everything becomes so clear all of a sudden. And I wish that's like how life worked in general, but it got to be like kind of like an emergency kind of call in the moment of like rising to the occasion. And to me, it's like all the cobwebs kind of like clear out and I know exactly what to do. And it's just, I don't know. And I know all the SE people here understand that. And I thought it was really cool that Susan, that she was like, oh, I'm so glad we're doing this because that's a great thing to point out. And like how you don't know as an SE user, you know, unless you have this kind of language to apply that everybody doesn't work that way.
I feel like
time slows down.
Time does. Yeah.
I feel like I literally just said this before you jumped on. But I was talking about how like currently I'm in a very stressed state. And I'm so used to living in life where it's like the to-do list, it gets written down in my head. Like it gets put in there, but then it floats around me. Like I just ignore it and I keep moving forward. And I just like all these things pass by. When the stress actually hits, it's almost like all of the to-do items come back into the list. And I see the list and it stresses me out even more because I'm like, oh, here's all the things I've ignored for the last 5 years. Like I have to do X, Y, and Z. And then I can get to the things that are on my current plate. And it's really stressful. And other people will step in and be like, hey, can I like help you out? They're like, what can I take off of your plate? Like, what can I do to help the load? But you don't hear any of the rest of the talk. It's almost like all you hear is the hey. And you're like, don't distract me. Like, stop trying to distract. So you kind of like, meh, you put on the blinders and just go.
Yeah.
Have you tried adding things to the bottom that you did do today so you can cross those off? I bet you have.
TE for me is like, right, add things to my to-do list I've already done, but I never wrote it down, then I cross it out.
You can always throw away the list. Just saying.
Well, that's what we do, though. Like, I feel like we so often throw away the list as SE users. Like, doesn't matter what needs to be done in the future. What's now? What happens?
Well, I mean, like the immediate to do. Like, I have to only put on my to do list what I have to like right this second. It's always pressure prompted. It's not like a what's your 5-year goal, Mariana? Like, I have no idea. This 5 years from now.
Tomorrow, so like
that could change vastly. Who knows?
Could change tomorrow. You know, like yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Dan, what was like your biggest takeaway? Like, what you thought, like similarity wise?
No, what you mentioned was very similar, and I think we processed a lot of just what we received from our parents similarly, right? As SE users having SI parents, like just that lack of connection with them. You know what I mean? Like feeling misunderstood because your SE is so dominant, it's so strong, and I mean the world is practically built for SE people. You know what I mean? Like we experience it fully, and so when nobody else understands that around you, you feel like a misfit. You do kind of wonder, like, okay, why am I seeing these things? Why do I notice this? Why am I the only one? Right. And when that isn't valued, it's hard to figure out where you fit in. So I think that's some similarities for just SE users in general. If people don't understand what they're seeing or why they're seeing it or how important it is to them, you know, for an SE user, bringing in information is like the pinnacle of importance. Like, I need information to thrive. I need new input because things change moment to moment. And if I don't get that, then I feel like I'm sinking, right? I don't have my next step forward. I can't see the stone right in front of me to step on. I don't see it without the new information. So I think regardless of ESFP, ESTP, I think that's just kind of how it feels as an SE Dom if people don't appreciate what you can bring.
I agree. As a segue, can I ask, do any of you struggle with addiction?
Yeah.
2-time rehab graduate right here.
Hey.
Actually, 1-time graduate. I got kicked out the first time, so I only graduated once.
Interesting.
No, absolutely.
I have an addictive personality, right? Like, I've never done like drugs.
You'd love them.
I probably would, and that's what scares me. That's what scares me, and that's why I knew from a young age I had to stay away from them, or I was going to be in trouble. Like, I just knew that about myself. However, caffeine, major addiction. Like, I drink probably eight cups of coffee a day, and that's just in the morning. That's just to get me started. Right? Yeah, exactly. And I probably have like at least 3 or 4 cans of Coke throughout the day. And I mean, it's just ridiculous the amount of caffeine intake. So yeah, and I'm like, I get addicted to all kinds of stuff, whether it's a show or a video game or whatever it is. It's like I'm hooked and I can't let go of it until I finish it or there is no more.
Yeah, finish it. I like that because you can find a new obsession really quickly. Fantasy football is my obsession right now. And so I spend way too much time on it. Sorry to interrupt, Joyce. I'm like, no, I've never thought about it in that sense. Like, it's like, what's going to be high? Whether it's like a drug or whether it's like alcohol, then maybe it's like a show or it's I don't know, like researching some topic over and over and over to learn about it. And it's addicting.
And that's why so many like ESPs type as either 8s in the Enneagram or 7s, because 8s, their fixation is on gluttony or lust, which is like a lust for experience or something. And with 7s, they have like a need to gather a variety of experiences. So that correlates with what you guys are saying about like addiction and wanting all the new experiences and all the intense highs of life that can bring.
So along with that, though, I do feel like well, at least personally, I can't really speak to everybody else's experience. But yes, I have a super addictive personality, and I know that if I do something, I will crave it, so I stay away from things. But I also have the willpower to be able to, if I do find myself in an addictive state, to be able to shut it down and be like, no, we're not doing this from now on, and be able to like control those urges and stop myself.
That's very ENTJ of you sounding like.
Oh, no, I agree with him, actually.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I agree.
But let me give you guys this. Why not just succumb to all of it for one day, like a day bender, right?
I love you. This is great.
I feel like this is. Are you a philosophy teacher?
Oh, dude, you want to talk about philosophy? I'm all about it.
This is amazing.
But
I can't give you a good reason not to.
I think we do. Like, I think you say a one-day bender. I think we've all been there.
And why not extend it to the rest of your life and continue the high over and over, and then it just increases throughout your life, and therefore you can never really. Yeah. Well, I like to look at it like this: like, you live every day to wake up to do what? Like, why the fuck do you wake up? You know what I mean? It's like you wake up to go to work. That's fucking lame. You wake up to live your life. That's more of a reason. I
can give you a million reasons why I wake up every day. Like,
perfect.
Like, that's not hard. I mean, for me, I've got an amazing wife and 5 kids. Okay. I am going to school for something I absolutely adore doing, and every day is different, and I can't wait to see what it's going to be and how I get to be a part of it. Period.
I think the argument against gluttony would be sustainability.
Yes.
I know for me, that's how I lived. But then the sheriff's kicked in my door, and my legal problem was bigger than my drug problem. I could quit the drugs, as John was saying, just through willpower. What I couldn't quit was the charges.
Ooh, yeah, that's tough.
Interesting. So the word sustainability is often associated with NI, actually. So NI is known as a a function that looks at the long-term consequences at things like off the bat, and so it's like concerned with sustainability. So maybe it's like your NI is catching up to you, and it's like, oof, yeah.
Yeah, at some point you just can't keep ignoring it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
That's
I'm
true.
glad you asked that question, though. That definitely sparked some conversation.
That's true. And so the next topic of discussion is your tertiary function, FE and TE. ESFPs have TE, extroverted thinking, in the third slot, and ESTPs have extroverted feeling, FE, in the third slot. So I was wondering if we could compare and contrast how these show up.
I almost feel like this is the opposite of what we were just saying, because again, back to the cliche terms, but like harmony and effectiveness, right? So like on this end, it is the opposite. It's where we're like, how do we make it keep going? Doesn't matter what everybody thinks, versus how do I appease everyone?
I think for ESTPs, FE is less about how to appease everyone as opposed to how to use everybody else's desires to align with your own.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That is my ESTP brother so much.
How does it feel to be a psychopath? I'm kidding.
No, it's true. It's true. See, because we make these cold calculations with TI, and then we figure out how to get everybody else to line up with them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's basically like, that describes exactly what I did the first time I was a manager. When I was 19 years old, I was managing an Arby's, and I had all these high school kids that were working the shift, and none of them wanted to do anything, but I knew the most efficient way to run it, right? My TI knew, here's all the things that need to be done. Here's who's best at all these things. Here's the system that's going to work the best. And then I allowed my FE to kick in and basically manipulate everybody else into doing those jobs so it would get done the fastest and most efficiently.
So is it like manipulate people versus manipulate things, maybe? FE versus TE?
Yeah, absolutely. I was manipulating the people, their emotions, their desires, their goals, whatever they wanted in that moment, I was able to use to my advantage.
Because it accomplishes like the long-term or the immediate goal at hand.
Mm-hmm.
What's the quickest way you can get this stuff done so you can go home? It's how
Exactly.
I look at TE that way, even for me. And it sounds like it's a means to an end type of like tertiary function.
Would you agree that they also, though, appreciated being manipulated more than if you'd just been direct with them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because they liked to, well, for multiple reasons. First of all, they like to believe that I spent that much time thinking about them and their individual desires, right? People want to know that they've been thought about. It makes them feel better about themselves. I knew who to say, dude, you are awesome at this. Can I get you to do this tonight? Like, you're the best one here at this. Can I get you to mop the floors? Can I get you to, you know what I mean? Like, you get them the most clean. And so people like that. Like, it's all about, it really does come into just charisma, right? And how you interact with people. It just is like the grease on your social interactions.
Oof, yes. Okay, like my ESTP brother is good at knowing like what people value around him, and using that for his TI, like what makes the most logical sense to him, and like to get that. Yeah.
I think SE makes that a superpower for y'all, like even like on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where I think that would be more powerful than an ENTP. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you guys have probably a similar capability because you're so in tune with what you believe, right? And can probably understand what people in general have an internal truth of, right? Whether they verbalize it or express it, everybody has very similar, in our country anyway, similar internal belief systems. And so you guys can use TE to view the people as resources to get that done then, and use
manipulated people. I really like realizing this. I think I've been manipulating people that I oversaw. I've never even thought about it. Fuck.
But it's similar, but it's like coming to the same conclusion, but from a different direction.
Different, like means to an end, but like arriving at the same end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. My FI is like, whoa, bitch, you really like need to like reflect on that.
They appreciate it.
I know what people kind of want to hear sometimes too, based on what I would have wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you take your internal, here's what would have made me feel good in that position. I just look at the person and say, how can I use this? Right? I don't worry about how I would feel because I couldn't care less. Like, I don't like being sucked up to, right? Like, I just don't. It drives me nuts. Just tell me what you want and we'll get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my approach to it. But I know there's very few people that are actually that direct about things. And so I allow my FE to work on them to make them feel better about it.
Mm.
Yeah, all this chat is amazing. It's making me think about like all the SE DOMs that have been mistyped as ENTJ by people because they're like, oh, you know, SE DOMs get stuff like they're action oriented and they get stuff done. They must be that. And then I can see people mistyping them as ENTJ when they're really like SE DOMs. I'm just saying, like, I noticed this happened before in real life, so I'm just putting it out there. Because do you understand, like, so what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing the description of the stereotypical ENTJ, which is incorrect because a lot of SE DOMs get mistyped as ENTJ in the description that you guys are talking about. Because you guys are like, oh, manipulating things for an end. And that's what people would typically associate with ENTJ, but that's false because SE DOMs are really good at that too. So, yeah.
Yeah, the first time I was ever typed, I got ENTJ. I mean, this is back in college. Like, I'm not going to say how long ago because I'll date myself. But yeah.
You don't seem like an evil dictator. I'm sorry.
Well, see, that's my tertiary FE charm coming through.
Yeah. Strangely enough, ESTPs and ENTJs do get mixed up. I don't know why.
Yes.
They seem so similar to me.
Yeah. Well, one way I've learned to differentiate them, even though this is ESFP versus ESTP, is like ENTJs use more colorful language versus ESTPs try to make it concise and to the point.
Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed every ESTP is, like he was saying, very concise, like use as few words to be as accurate as possible.
Mm.
Yes.
And I think if we stop being concise, that is a red flag.
That's true.
If we
Taylor.
stop being concise, we're selling you bullshit.
Oh, that FE is an overdrive at that
Hey,
point.
don't let our secrets out.
But that's why ESTPs make such great salesmen.
Yeah. Have you guys been in sales? Any of you been in sales?
I can't stand it. No.
Same.
I actually enjoyed. I enjoyed sales. I made bank. Yeah, like I had a blast because I could take people who were browsing over here and I would just watch them to see what they were stopping and looking at, and then you use that. It's all information. It's all data that you can use to upsell and to get them to spend more money than they were intending to.
I see you looking at that stereo. What you really want is the timeshare.
Right? Yeah. and they want to know how you know.
Body language, I'll pick up. Obviously, we all do. But do you think this has anything more to do, like with like? To me, sales is so icky, and I have been forced into that. It's part of like where I got laid off. But like that was part of my role, was like just to sell. It feels so impure and gross because I know I'm purposely kind of manipulating something. Like it's so obvious I am. I'm not just like doing it subconsciously, but
authenticity.
Yeah, it's like.
But that's the nature of the exchange, and so that's why it doesn't bother me at all. That's the nature of the exchange. When you get
Enneagram 8s and 7s right now, to me that's an Enneagram 8 and 7 type thing as well.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, just to the flavor of the SE Dom type thing, where I'm like I want to help people. I mean, actually, I need them to need me. Maybe I should go into sales. I don't know.
Oh, that's
no,
where do you stand on the sales thing?
I don't know. Could I be good at it? Yeah. Do I like it? No.
See, and I think that's a difference there, right there, between FI and TI. I think that's a strong difference right there because for me, I view it as like a problem to be solved. How can I sell them this thing? Whereas FI feels like it's a violation of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my ENFP best friend couldn't do sales because she doesn't want to sell a product her FI doesn't believe in. Like it's like a violation of her authenticity. Yeah, like she'll even
dramatic, but I agree with that. But for me, that's exactly what it is. That sounds so ridiculous, but it's ridiculous in the sense like, oh, you can't sell something you don't believe in. Like, are you that woo woo? And it's like, no, I just like feel so wrong, I feel icky.
No, yeah, I totally get it. There have been energy drink companies that have pitched to my gym, you know, can we sell in your gym and we'll give you this amount of money, this kickback, this discount, whatever. But I'm like, your drink is not something that I drink, so no. Like unless it's my brand, like the one that I currently am drinking, no, I'm not selling it. Like I can't get behind it.
That doesn't bother me at all. I don't feel like I speak for everybody at all, nor would I know what they want. What somebody else's needs are, they're in a better position to know that than I am. And so as part of the interaction, the salesperson customer negotiation, it's sort of, in my mind, it's a prerequisite that we both know where we're each at. I can make suggestions, I can show you things, but I can't change the fact that you know what you need. I don't know what you need.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you guys this then. How do you feel about being on the other side of it, right? Like, how do you feel as a buyer going in when you know you were going to have to negotiate or deal with salespeople? Do you avoid those situations?
Yes, most likely. It depends on what was at stake. Even at a really like nice like retailer, like when someone's starting to like force things, I gotta get out of here because I don't want to fake anything. I'm like, it's like I just feel so invasive.
I don't want to be sold anything.
Yeah.
Ever.
See, I love when I have to buy another vehicle because I love to go and do my homework before I go and then catch them trying to oversell me and then undercutting them. Like, I love doing that. Like, it's such a rush. It's so much fun. And I don't care about their feelings because I'm there to get the best deal for me.
Yeah.
Man, I want to be y'all. That's awesome. He's so undervalued. I feel like that's amazing.
I agree with that.
You're looking out for number one without considering outside factors or how someone else might feel like if you don't take their product.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
It's like a game to get like the most logical like outcome. Yeah.
I do the same. I would say I'm very similar though. Like I'll even negotiate at Walmart. Like I negotiate anywhere. You know? Like you can negotiate a price anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way to find a way, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I've always been kind of people have always kind of made fun of me because I'm not afraid to hear no. Like I'm not afraid of rejection. And so when it comes to things, I'm like, well, the worst thing I can do is ask and they say no. Like at least I asked, because what if they say yes? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do y'all think, not to like bring like political stuff into it, but I'm going to do it. Just curious. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm SC observation. Do y'all think being a man versus a woman has anything to do with that? Like, at least I grew up in the South, like the way I was.
Well, that's not political. I would, no, patriarchy style, like dominance. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I'm just kind of curious. I'm like, I just know a lot of girls like that would never like feel comfortable doing that.
Because girls are taught to be quiet and sit down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious. I just thought about that. I was like, oh man.
Women are more agreeable on the big five, so that would make a lot of sense that men have an easier time being disagreeable.
That's really true. I think it's a gender thing, like you all are mentioning, and also maybe a cultural thing too. Like my mother, she is an ESFP, but she's Asian, like so she loves bargaining, and she'll like negotiate the best deal all day long, man. She's ruthless.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's ruthless. So Asia, like I don't know, like my Chinese culture is big on like the older generation, like just bargaining, like ruthless buyers. It's so embarrassing as her child sometimes.
See, I feel like I would be like hyped. I'd be just like watching the exchange and being like taking notes and like, okay, oh, that's good phrasing, and like I'd be like so stoked.
I feel like Daniel's getting excited just picturing like going like with your mom somewhere too.
I am. I've got like I can distinctly remember every vehicle I've purchased because I enjoyed the process so much. Like not just because I'm like buying a vehicle, but like the interaction and getting the best deal possible, and like all of it. Like it also satiates my TI because I do the research beforehand. Like I look up the VIN number, so I know what it came with originally. And so I know when I go there, what it should have, what it doesn't have, what they've altered, what they, so like, and I just store all that information, and I don't prioritize one over the other because it's got to be fluid to make it available in whatever way I need it at the time. So Yeah, like that kind of thing just gets me super, super excited.
Yeah.
That's really
I hate losing in negotiation, though.
That's
And like here's when salespeople do get dirty, when they rope in your girlfriend who's with you.
Oh yeah,
That's the fucking worst.
Yeah, it is. It's bad.
Because then you gotta get got, or you gotta have a fight when you get home.
Did Susan go car shopping with you, Daniel, ever?
No, she knows nothing about vehicles except how to drive them. So, like, even if they were trying to get her on something, she'd be like, I know nothing. Like, you've got to talk to him.
Let me call him.
Right, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great, like, partnership.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, any differences you guys notice?
A lot of differences. Really quick, I feel like we have all kind of somewhat touched on, like, the competitive factor in general. And that was actually something, Daniel, like, we kind of discovered in our, like, you know, when we had the video recording with Susan, was this is going to go on similarities for sure, but the SE Dom, like, just the competitiveness factor, and making a game out of a lot of things, because like it makes life more fun, more interesting, more like there's an end goal, an immediate goal, like in the next 30 minutes possibly, that like it's going to just get people like more on board, more interested, like in participating in something. I think that is something that we will always all have in common at a really like overarching level. I mean, like the majority, like 9 out of 10 times, like we're all going to agree on that. Spice life up, make it fun.
Absolutely.
Make it a competition. And I think you like researching cars almost makes it a competition when you go to buy one.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think differences, if we look at the tertiary functions between TE and FE, I think that's probably going to be more obvious than immediacy in the immediacy than the TI and FI, because it is extroverted. So I feel like if you look at the interactions between ESFPs and ESTPs, that ESTPs are probably going to have just a slight edge of being a little more socially smooth because of that FE. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys might disagree with me, but I feel like TE is looking to use external to organize, to put things in place, to make it efficient. And with FE, it is about the social interaction. It is about the communication and somewhat being able to put ourselves in that person's shoes. You guys disagree? That's fine. Go for it. Rip it to shreds.
I'm just laughing at Jet.
I disagree, just because all my ESFP friends are just drastically better at interacting with people, because they're people, bro. Like ESTPs are more like concerned about how to use people. ESFPs are more concerned with how to work with people. But that's
Thank you.
Yeah, that's my observation. I'm probably wrong in your point of view, and that's quite fine. This is where we learn to agree to disagree.
No, I definitely see your point. Absolutely.
I think it changes over time. I think ESFPs open better, but then that interpersonal skill breaks quicker under pressure, whereas ESTPs are using it in more of a strategic way to begin with, and it's less easy to fluster.
Interpersonal, like in the sense of like it's only like 30 minutes, you got to do this, or like you're talking like I'm curious, because I like my FI.
I think in the face of resistance, ESFP interpersonal lube starts to deteriorate quicker than ESTP, though I think ESFPs open better generally. So
that is an amazing difference, Taylor. Like, fantastic. Like, I noticed that too. So yeah, like ESFPs probably like initially are better people, but what I noticed is under pressure, when the ESFP is in the grip of TE, they're more likely to be like sharp with the other person, whereas the ESTP is more likely to see it as a long-term social game. And so then like when there is a difficult moment, the ESTP will smooth over that difficult moment a little less TE abrasively. And I noticed that.
I was gonna disagree with you until you put it like that. Like as soon as
that was a way better way of putting it.
That's like, because I do feel as though like I'm very good at flowing with other people. I'm great at interacting. I feel like, as you say, like opening is so easy. But once I hate to use the word triggered because it's so overused in this time period. But once I start getting triggered, immediately. And I'm just like, okay, now we're done. It's going to be an issue. It's very abrasive. And it's been something I've really tried to work on for a while now. But there is a switch that gets abrasive quickly.
Yes.
We get more bored of people more easily, John, like in these like intimate or deep conversations. I'm like, okay, I'm mad. That's good. Let's go to the next one.
Well, they're using the context of tension or stress within the situation. So conflict, I would say. And within the conflict, I think we get tired of the energy it takes to maintain that conflict. And so we get very, very sharp, very blunt.
I'm not comfortable with conflict, number one. So
it's my comfort zone.
Do what?
It's my comfort zone.
Yeah, I was like, wait, maybe that's more of an Enneagram thing, but yeah, I do think our TE can make us such assholes, or just so detached, like from the human experience, or like what? I don't know. I agree, Taylor. Thanks for making that point.
And I think that's why I can play off of his so much, because it is 7 ESTP versus ESFP, and so like when he says, toward the end of the conflict, like they have a long game. I can't say the same.
And that is something that I've exploited a lot in my divorce. Is I know that I've got the duration there.
Yeah, like with ESTPs, you'll hear more like using language like exploit, or because it's like TI detached, so like they're more okay with saying these words. And so
for it.
And yeah, so a big difference between ESTP and ESFP is look when they're triggered. The ESFP is more likely to be obviously triggered, where the ESTP will contemplate for a moment how to handle it in the way that's most going to have the most social long-term gain. So the ESTP has more of a, like, it's almost like they're level-headed in a way. Like ESTPs, like you cannot really snap them out of being level-headed, and you'll notice that even when you trigger them, they'll still be level-headed. With ESTPs, with ESFPs, you know when something crosses the FI and the TE.
The door slam happens pretty quickly. We might open it back up one day, but it wow, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh God, man, we're awful. Like,
I think I've put a lot of work into this, and into taking a step back when I do get like triggered in conversation or conflict, and just kind of being like, why did that bother me? Like stepping out of the conversation for a second, being like, why did that bother me? And I've said this before. It's been a major focus of mine for the last 3 years. So I can step back and be like, why did that bother you? Was it like why was it the way that it made you feel? Was it the way that it made you think? Like what triggered you about it? And then I can step back in and like either elevate or de-escalate. But I feel like the biggest thing that I find myself elevating against is inauthenticity. When I feel like somebody is just not being authentic with me, there is no going back. That's when my door slam happens. That's when it's a hard trigger.
and it's like a long-term door slam, I'm assuming.
Right.
Why is it important to figure out why something triggered you? Because to me, that's in the moment, that seems like a moot point.
Mainly because I've been quick to anger all my life, and it's really been.
I know you have.
It's been a problem in most of my relationships, friendships, family ships, like all of my ships. And I got tired of sinking them all. So it just was something that I really needed to put in work and go to therapy for and figure out why I'm so quick to anger. Like, is this anger loneliness? Is it insecurity? Is it like is it pain? Like, where's it coming from?
But it doesn't help you in the moment with that situation.
But it could in the future.
Right.
So it's as a point of self-growth.
Okay.
It's so here's my theory on it. Like FI, it tends to get stuck. So when it's trying to emotionally resolve something within itself, until it understands that emotion fully, like, and it's fully processed, it'll get stuck on that because it wants to like parse out its emotion and break down its emotion as much as it can. It's just like it's like how TI gets stuck until it understands something like logically fully. So it's almost like with TI, it's like this logical part in the equation needs to be fixed before I can move on. So it's like it wants to like get pure logic, so it'll keep trying to like work on that logic. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, when John was saying like, why do you think about the why behind your trigger? It's like FI sometimes wants to figure that out because it's like it's important to figure out its motivation or its intent or its emotion.
Well, and I think it helps to push forward on development of NI. Honestly, it helps me open up perspectives, which is something I've never had until recently. Like, it's so hard for me to step into everybody else's shoes, and when I can actually step back in a conversation and be like, why did this trigger me? Then I can come back to the conversation and be like, I get how you came to that. Like, now I can see where that came from. I shouldn't have reacted the way that I did, so let's work through this together, instead of being like, you're wrong, go to hell. Like,
that's interesting. So I'm wondering, this is a side tangent, but do you guys think the second function is a gateway to your fourth function? So maybe like for ESTPs, the way that they they access their NI is that they go to their TI, and when they like TI understand something fully, they go to their NI.
Well, it works in that X, right?
Yeah.
Our model works in the X. So like,
yeah.
I don't know, driver
NI kind of feels like NI sometimes when I read a description, just in the sense of all this contemplation. I do think it opens up, like, it is a gateway, kind of like just seeing the bigger picture in some ways of things that are like interconnected.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason why I bring that up is because, like, you know, Taylor will talk to me sometimes, and then he'll TI say something, but it's like so TI fleshed out that it somehow like gets to his NI. So for instance, like, FlowState was telling me about the duality between like INFJs and ESTPs, and how ESTPs help fill in the TE blind spot of INFJs. And at that moment, when he was like explaining his TI logic about the whole thing, it felt like he was tapping into his NI too, because it's like it started to go so deep that it was like accessing like the NI of it. And I guess that's another differentiator you can make, because I think that's the difference between ESTP and an ESFP too.
I feel like it very much works that way, because the driver, I'm using the car model as my example right now. I'm just going to. But like driving down the road, and like my co-pilot's like, hey, I think you probably, and I'm just like, stop talking. I look back look back at the 10-year-old, and I'm like, what do you think, buddy? Am I going the right way? And he's like, yeah, Dad, like we're going the right way. And I'm like, see, we're going the right way. Whatever. And then all I hear is the 3-year-old behind me screaming. Like, there's no audible like anything. But my co-pilot can hear the 3-year-old and be like, hey, it's okay, we're going to get food soon. And I'm like, how'd you even know he was hungry? Like, all I heard was screaming. So they communicate and we communicate. It really does kind of work in that X.
Yeah, it's like your auxiliary communicates with your fourth function. So how do ESFPs use their FI to access their NI? Like, for instance, for Mariana, what I noticed how she did this was like her father's death. And then like that FI moment where it was like needing to process all of that grief and that stuff brought you like depth of reflection, Marianne. So it brought you to your NI, you know? And so I'm wondering, like, if...
I'll take it. I'll take any access to NI that you take. I feel like that's why FI can kind of feel like NI, maybe. Or maybe it is like a gate. Like maybe, it's a gateway. Reflection to see a bigger picture of interconnection.
Well, I think that's exactly what I covered when I was talking about anger. Like, I used that emotional reaction, and the more I worked on it and tried to understand it, the better I got, and the perspective around it got. So it actually worked that way.
Yeah. And it's different for ESTPs. So I think how ESTPs use their TI to then tap into their NI is, so my brother used to be like a go, 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 action, action, action. But when he learned to slow down and think about how, like, but he naturally does it too. But it's almost like he has this mode where when he is TI, it's almost like ESTPs, when they're thinking about something strategically and how to go about it, like they're like, okay, so it makes the most logical sense to do this, 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 this. And then it's almost like they're thinking about the long-term game, which is, to me, when I think about the long-term game, I think that's NI. So like ESTPs get there in a detached way. It's almost like the more detached an ESTP is, the more in touch with their NI they are. Oh, cat.
Oh.
Anyways, any other differences? How about communication styles? We talked about how ESTPs are normally concise, brief, and like succinct with their words. How are ESFPs like with their words?
Mine are colorful sometimes, but overall short and sweet to get to a really quick point. I think that's SE.
I think it depends on the goal of the conversation. Like, do I want somebody to completely understand me and think that I'm intelligent, or do I care?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But like just in general, like giving directions to somebody to do something, I do try to be really quick and to the point. So I'm like, save the fluff. That's for like end users. Like fuck that. Like
Yeah. Get to the point is super
Get to the
SE.
point.
I feel like I pick apart every little detail, and I feel like I explain all of the pieces of the cog that make the big thing work. Like if I was to explain a roundhouse kick to somebody, it takes me a good 10 minutes of explaining, mansplaining, I guess, every little piece of the rotation of the body, all of it.
John, so that's so interesting. So you talked about like how you'll explain every little part about how to do a certain like move or something, right?
Mhm.
I think that might actually be some of your TE too. Like I notice people with TE, like how they when they instruct someone to do something, they give all the logical steps to order yourself to be able to do it. And I noticed that that's very consistent among like TE users.
Yeah.
When it comes to explaining things that way, I feel exhausted by it. I know all of the information, but the idea of having to give out every minutia piece of detail is just exhausting to think about, because I have so much detail retained and so much information that to put it back out there and why it all plays together and why they need to know all this stuff to make it work. Like I think about doing that with people, and I would just rather not, because it makes me tired. It literally makes me tired to think about trying to explain all of it to them.
I think I find pleasure in that.
Ooh, TE
tiring
versus
to me,
TI.
too.
I love developing people, so it's funny. I enjoy that, but at the same time, I feel like I trip over my words trying to explain how to do something because I know how to do it. Like it's almost like it's become like a part of me in some ways. Like, and I'm just thinking of work in like this context, but like, so I feel like I will give every single mother freaking detail that you could ever want, and I feel like it's SJ in some ways. That's probably annoying, but I feel like it's not TE. Like, oh my god, I found a chance, like to shine. Let me tell you everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Details.
Yeah, what I noticed about TE is it'll tell you every little step on how to do something. It leaves no room for creative variation sometimes. It's like you have to do it like this specific way and it'll order it exactly how you're supposed to do it. And then I'll feel kind of like, as a TI user, suffocated because I want to do it in my own way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But no, I'm not throwing shade. I had a run-in with my ESFP mother today, and she was like telling me exactly how to do something, and I'm like, Mom, I'll do it, but I don't want to do it in that exact specific way that you tell me to do it. So it's like a TE thing. Like I noticed, because it's like TE is very like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into get to the A to the Z. But like so it's kind of like more stringent on how to, or more rigid with how to complete that task. Where I think that with TI it might leave more room for fluidity, because like TI is more like fluidity with logic.
Paired with that too, though, I feel like we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we experiment with everything here.
Yeah, that's true.
Find the best way that we can get things done. And so when you pair that with TE and you get the explanation, it's like, I understand why you would want creative liberty here, but I've tried it. I've been there. This is the most efficient way to do it.
I feel like I've gone through that process internally with myself, and I will just do it myself as opposed to try to get somebody else to do it. As opposed to instructing them, I just would rather do it myself. Just like, even if I'm exasperated and mad at them or irritated, I would still rather do it myself because I know it'll get done right.
I think the unfortunate part there is, though, that, like, for me at least, I teach, Taekwondo athletes that are going onto the Olympic stage, and I can't do it for them. So, like, I have to get into that mindset of the breakdown. But all the athletes that I've worked with kind of crave their own creative liberties, but I think with the basics, at least, I'm like, no, you don't get to add flair here. Like, this is the fastest way from A to B, and if you want to win, this is how we're going to do it. And then as they start winning, if they want to start tweaking things in their own creative way, then that's cool. But for right now, like, just trust me. Like, I've tried it too.
I know when I try to explain something to people, I tend to give them just what I think they need to get it done. And if they can't get it done, I'll go back and I'll add a little bit so that I'm giving as little as I have to make the end result occur.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I am. I'm training someone at work right now, and I don't tell them how to do anything. I tell them what I want. and I let them figure it out. And if they get stuck, I expect them to ask me. And I justify that by saying, well, they'll learn it better that way, which I do believe. But also, I don't want somebody to work for me who needs their hand held constantly. The right person for the job will have some problem-solving capacity, and so I force them to show that.
Yeah, that was really well explained, everyone. I think that's a really core difference between ESTP and ESFP. Like my ESTP brother, he likes to like tell me like what he wants done, but he won't like give me the step-by-step on how to do it. Like he'll give me what like the bare bones of what I need to get done, and then he'll leave it for me to figure out. But like he'll give me room for that freedom. Whereas my ESFP mom is more of she'll list out exactly what like needs to be done on my to-do list. Like she'll give me a to-do list. I noticed with ESFPs, they offer a way more like TE steps when they're trying to help you with something. And with ESTPs, you don't get that. So that's a difference there.
I definitely resonate with that. Just even like managing people when I first like became a manager, of really having like check in with myself, do some work, listen to different podcasts, and read stuff of like, how do you not micromanage? Because I don't want to be micromanaged, and it's not that I don't trust the other person; it's where I want the best for them. And so I'm giving like, so when I would like write procedures, like audit procedures, because that's so fun. You'd have to write out exactly what you did, like in these workbook, and I could get down to the nitty gritty detail. And not just for it's almost like it's a really stupid, like guilty pleasure I would have of like, let me tell you exactly as if someone could replicate it next year, like when they look at this file, exactly what I did to test this area. And I had to check in with myself. I was micromanaging, and it didn't come from an ENTJ type of place that I think of when I kind of think of micromanaging in my experience. It came from wanting the best for somebody, but like slowly backing away. It's like, hey, you gotta give them the space. Let them try to figure things out. That's your boss gave you that. But also, I think there's a balance you have to strike where you're checking in consistently enough or often enough where they can't get the ship too far, like off. Like you got to like, get it back on course. Like if you let it, there were times like when I would do a total hands-off approach, it's like the opposite of what I was doing. Let me see how this works. And you're like, God damn it. It's like freaking 11 p.m. It's busy season. And now I've got to redo all this work. And so to Daniel's point, I'm like, I could just do all the work myself then. And you're like, well, I don't think that's really smart either, because I'm trying to get promoted. So if I want to get promoted, the people underneath me have to know how to do something so they can get promoted. And so like, how do you that was something I struggled with, and that I think I got way better at my 3rd year as a manager. But I don't know. Like I definitely, I think that TE, man. Oh man, that's the ugly side of TE. I don't think there's like any really positive side of TE for me. So
I think that's tertiary in general because it's not as developed. It's hard for us to use it always in the best way. It tends to be a little underdeveloped and used in an unhealthy way often.
Maybe the tertiary is used in an unhealthy way to back up your dominant function because it's in the same orientation. Mm-hmm. Like what John was saying, like you go to your 10-year-old and you're like, hey there, buddy, back up me, the dominant function.
Right, we don't need to turn. I think it's something I've definitely had to put a lot of work into as well. I've been on a journey of trying to grow myself and change myself, like develop, not change. But I found that in the past, my advice used to look very linear. I would be like, here are the steps. Like people would come to me, especially athletes that I've had that have now graduated and gone to college. Sometimes they'll call me because they don't want to call mom and tell mom about like somebody offering them drugs in school or something. They want to talk to, coach. So they'll call me and ask for advice. And I used to give a very like straight A to B answer. And now I've found myself more in a space where I'm like, well, what do you feel like? Like, where are you at? And how would you get there? And I kind of let them work through it themselves. But that's taken a lot of work because it used to just be so much easier for me to be like, do this instead. Jet, are you a 7 on the Enneagram?
Hey, I don't even know.
Love it. He's a 7. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you said you get SXSP, right? Is that how you introed?
So for the most part, this is just a facade at the moment.
I need you to talk more. I want to hear everything about you. Please tell us everything.
Okay, all the facades, though, everybody's wearing masks.
I tend to be quiet for the most part of my life because if you're quiet, no one knows anything about you, and it's magnetic. People are drawn to like people who they don't know anything about.
You're creating a sense of mystery, Jet. So I have a question for you, Jet. You're like a very deep ESP. So I was wondering, is it because you're dating an NF, or is it because you're just naturally this deep?
Hey, she can answer that for you because I don't know jack shit about myself at all. If I'm going to be honest, I genuinely don't know anything about myself, and I'm always on an adventure. And this is why I'm here, to learn about myself, ultimately to connect with others and learn about them. But juxtaposing myself to them and seeing the differences and similarities, and then seeing, oh, I'm definitely not an ESFP. After interacting with you two as well. But yeah.
Oh, like I thought you were looking at the cat when you're like, "Hey, she can answer for me." I was like, "Is the cat?" I'm glad we were able to help you roll ESFP out. That's good.
I look like a peanut. Jet wants me up here though.
Hey,
A peanut.
Hey, Ariana.
I only said 7 because I think every time it's very clear that you're expressive. You're a very expressive person, and every time something has not resonated with you, it's a hard eye roll, or it's like your face drops pretty quick. Like, oh, exactly. Thank you for proving that.
So
Yeah, he's hard to read.
well, I don't know. I'll say this. I come from an SI family. My mom and dad are both ISFJs. I currently work in an SI related field, which is healthcare. My bosses fucking hate me because I'm very too energetic, and they're all ISTJs or ESTJs, and it's just like they just don't get my energy. So I have to like tone it down and act very professional. Hi, how are you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm doing great. Like, no, dude, like I'm fucking feeling. I fucking partied too hard last night or something, and like I'm recovering from a hangover. I can't be like that at work. So that's ultimately why I don't want to talk too much about myself, because I don't want my bosses or future bosses finding videos like this and be like, dude, is that you? Yes, it is. But like, do you like my personality? Hire me for who I am and what I can bring to your company. Yeah. I think I got off track from the question, but I hope that answered your question.
I don't even remember the
My
question.
question-
I love everything you said, though. That's really helpful. Like,
Thank you.
Yeah, my question was like what makes you like discuss so many deep topics, Jet? Is it like a natural inclination you've had, or is it exposure to an intuitive that has done that? Because the reason why I ask is because John like has had exposure to an intuitive dom, and it made him like ultra deep. And I wonder if like can an ESFP or ESTP naturally be that deep, or does there need to be a catalyst there? That's my question.
First of all, why does there need to be a catalyst for anything? Like and this is the thing about
That
SE,
was deep.
if it's something you like, why not just go out and take it? If I want to be deep, I'll go out and be fucking deep. If I don't want to be deep and be like surface level with people, why not? Like it's that easy. But for the most part, am I deep or not?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, even she doesn't know. So
That wasn't the question.
I'm
There was a catalyst for the craving.
I'm sorry?
There was a catalyst for the craving. Like you just said, your statement right there was, if I want to be deep, then I'll just be deep. But what makes you want that? There has to be a catalyst for the one. And
Perfect. Sorry, go on.
my catalyst happened to be somebody else that had very deep thought. And I was like, oh, I want to emulate that. Like I enjoyed that. And so it stimulated that in me.
interesting.
How do you I'll pose this question. How do you become an interesting person for people to become attracted to you, like magnetized almost? And it's to be deep and interesting, and also not giving away all your cards off your hand. And I'm nowhere near interesting. I'll fucking trust me when I say this. I'm very like fucking stupid, and just that's not bullshit. And while that what just all I have to say is if it doesn't matter if a person is deep or not. It just matters if they have good intentions in life, and if they're going to use that to benefit humanity or not.
Are you an ESFP? I'm just curious. I'm joking, but like that's something an ESFP would say.
I don't know. She keeps saying I'm a healthy person now. I really wasn't a healthy person. Well, I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I'm a very sarcastic person also, but I don't really like talking about me. which is why I don't really know about me, because I don't really like talking about me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no worries, man. No, it's all good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Dude, Jet, I'm like totally on board with you there, because I have learned way more about myself after I got married to my INFJ wife, who was obsessed with figuring me out and then told me all about myself. Okay, so like that's how I've come to have any kind of knowledge of MBTI or Enneagram or any of that, was because my wife loves this stuff, and as an intuitive, it was like candy to her. And she, like, I was the nearest test subject, if you will. And so she just figured it out on me. And without that, I would have been just going along doing my thing and like, whatever, I am who I am, and who cares about this. So I kind of get where you're coming from. It's interesting, right? Like, it's interesting to understand people and to see who you relate to and who you have similarities to. But at the end of the day, I'm just me, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
So
true.
I get that.
I agree that we all have our individual traits, and we all have like at the end of the day, we are us. I will say, okay, so in the last ESTP panel, I talked about Dario Nardi, and I realized that I didn't give the complete statistic. So this is a statistic on how much type is influential, Dario Nardi wise. With people who are not the same type, or just random brain scans of two people, is a 33% similarity in the brain. It can be as low as 5%, so it can go all the way down. Like, you can be like as little as 5% similar with someone else's brain pattern. But for someone who's not your type, it's 33%. And for someone who it is your type, and you scan their brain, so an ESTP and an ESTP, the score will range from 90% similarity to 70% similarity. So it's like around an 80% similarity. So like, although we all have our individual traits, and like that's a big part of us, like there's starting to be like emerging science that is proving that type is actually a thing. And it's slowly building, but like that looks really promising. Like, that is incredibly promising. So on my website, Dynamic Archetypes, we're writing about how everyone has their individual personality, which is something unique to you that no one else shares. And then you have your collective archetype, something, a pattern that you are participating in, that when you die, it'll still exist, but it's like this archetype that plays throughout humanity that you get to exist upon in this moment in life. And so, yeah, we all are our individual selves. And I totally agree with that. But I guess together, these create, like, your individual personality, your collective archetype creates your dynamic archetype, which is hence the name of the website that I'm going to be posting soon.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, Jet, thank you for spurring all of that thought on humanity and the human condition. You really tapped into your NI. Do you guys have any closing thoughts that you guys want to talk about before the panel?
I have a question on that really quick. So Jet, there were two instances where you mentioned attraction. You brought it up twice. So the first one was you like to stay silent because people are more attracted to silence, so it draws them in. And the second one was that people are attracted to deep people because they seem interesting, so it draws them in. And so my question is then, is most of your motivation for developing NI in depth drawing other people in? Because I could care less about other people. Like, if you don't like me, that's cool.
No, I'm the same way. If I don't like you, bro, I'm gonna fucking let you know, or I'm just gonna fuck off or something. But drawing people in is, I just see this: people come first, and then I come second, and that's coming from a long road of like self-growth. I realize no one really matters except other people, and if you put yourself above other people, that's when you're fucking. What are you waking up for? Like, you're waking up for your kids or something, not yourself ultimately. Like when you live like a typical normal life. But so for the people that are childless, or what's it called? They child free. They don't want to have kids or something. They're living for another purpose, whatever the case may be. Just finding a purpose greater than yourself is ultimately what we as humans should be striving for, because at the end of the day, if you're just living 100% for yourself, I really can't see you as a human being. You're a fucking robot. Yeah, and also you're probably super unhealthy or something. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it
I love how the FI is whispering in your ear.
Yeah, no, I can hear. She's like, that didn't answer the question.
She's like, no, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, I think
It's
it's funny that you divert to, like what the answer should be for what people should head toward, but you avoided answering your own motivations.
Yeah, no, I do that on purpose sometimes, but I
Checkmate.
do it I've done it so much on purpose that I do it on accident. And the reason why is because it really does. Okay, just a stupid segue into my life. Getting to know people like one-on-one, they end up knowing more about themselves than they do about me. And that's really how I keep that disconnect there. There's no reason for you to know anything about me. That's pretty much it. And that's all. Yeah.
Then my question is that could that be the FE emotional pivot, whereas like FE users don't like to? So I know ESTPs tend to like play their FE, so then it's for their TI gain. So is it like they don't want to reveal too many of their cards because they want to remain on the advantage side, or is it like could it be like like FE just likes to turn the tables on someone else, like and so I don't know.
Teach us your ways. Teach us your ways. Which one?
No, I can't snitch on other ESTPs. Sorry, you're gonna have to ask them.
Trade secret.
I was going to try to take a little pressure off him and say that it looks to me like that would be some tertiary FE right there that he was doing. And given the context of what we're doing, which is discussing in a visible way, I think that FE would be appropriate there. Also, the John's questions are very personal and FI-ish. So, I mean, that's sort of a blind spot for us. It's like, look at this ball of light. And you can kind of see like the ring around it, but when you look directly at the light, you're not seeing shit. And so you kind of pivot and distance yourself from it to be able to handle that topic, because it really is kind of like.
Wait, want to see something crazy? Okay, Mariana and John, how do you feel right now?
I'm having so much fun. I love talking to y'all.
Good.
Energized. I feel
Okay, Daniel and Taylor, how do you feel?
I'm good.
See, so with like FE, it's always like positive, or FI is like a little bit more real. That's kind of how I differentiate ESTPs and ESFPs. I could be wrong.
And I would assume that the ESTP answer is stock, and the ESFP answer is just in general. ESTPs respond to that way with a stock item.
Yeah, I agree.
What's a stock? Like, what do you mean by stock item?
Just like, I'm good.
basic answer.
Yeah, I'm good, fine, whatever. It's not
Specific.
It's not conveying information. It's continuing the conversation.
The original 10 emojis.
That is a really good point.
So like I feel like I was just really super fucking specific. I was like, I'm doing great, having fun, like love talking to y'all.
Energized. Yeah.
I feel good. It's like I gotta let y'all know just how great I think y'all are and how much fun I'm having.
Yeah. FE users beat around the bush with like their actual answer. It's more generic. It's more hiding like their emotion. So
I didn't notice. I'm joking.
I feel like between ESTP and ESFP, because FI is more focused on self internally, right? Like they know themselves better. ESTPs are really out of touch with who they are as a person, what they feel. They might know what they actually think, but as far as like the connection to them as a person and how it plays into who they are, they're completely out of touch with it. And it is hard to get into that mindset for an ESTP, to really delve in and say, I'm feeling this because this happened and it's connected to that. And like, it's near impossible. Okay. Like you would probably find me start crying before I would be able to do that naturally. And I don't cry. I haven't cried in years.
Why?
Like it's probably been, no, I'm serious. It's probably been like 20 years since I've cried. So like, it's just not something that I don't contemplate it, I don't put any effort towards it. Honestly, I try to avoid it. So, you know, like Jet was pointing out, you guys are in touch almost instantly with how you're feeling and what you think about the situation you're in. ESTPs will tell you, this is what's happening and this is what I can do in this situation. It has nothing to do with how they feel. It's about just the facts of the situation.
Is there like an opposite that's true for us as ESFPs? Like we're like a situation like where y'all are really good at it, y'all know immediately, and that we're like, oh, this really, I don't know, like that's hard. Or we get like really generic answers. Is there like an opposite that's true?
I don't know. Have any of you guys been in like triage situations? How do you feel? How do you feel in those situations, John? Like is it hard for you to process like how you need to act for that person because you're trying to identify with them?
There's a lot of training there that trumps the instinct. Training trumps instinct.
Absolutely.
So no, but I would say in the very beginning when I first started, yeah, there were issues before. Like it took me a while to think through what were the appropriate steps to take, and now it's like, no, I just know what to do.
Right, and that was something that, because you have that. I'm assuming you're talking about military, possibly training, or
private security sectors or like anything like that. We have constant. I keep a paramedic on my team at all times because we have constant calls for anything and everything. But I am usually first on site with my medic, and so I'm always there to help her and guide her, and like anything she needs, I'm along for. And I would say that at first there was like what needs to be like what is like I would have those freezing moments or like those moments of like very generic stuff, and now it's just become so second nature that I can move quickly with her.
Right. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, I automatically knew what to do. I went through a whole lot of training with the military. I did convoys, and because we would be in the middle of the desert with no specific medical team with us, everybody had to be trained in some basic, they called it combat lifesaver. We could do an NP airway. We learned how to do IVs, tourniquet, like a lot of stuff that we had to learn how to do. And from the get-go in training scenarios and everything, I was like energized and like, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I didn't even stop to think about the other person, right? Like it was just, this is just the facts of what you do. So I don't know if you would feel like that was similar to you or if that was different.
Oh man, actually I do have an example. Yes, I think it is different. Recently our paramedic, she's diabetic, and recently she accidentally pulled her pump out in her sleep, and we didn't realize it. And so the next day, like I noticed the signs, I could see what was going on, I could see that she was fading on me quickly, and so I looked, and one of my other partners is also an ESFP, and I looked at him and I was like, hey, I think we need to we have to do something. It's time to make a move here. And he was like, she's just tired. It was a really long night last night. And I was like, no, she's not just tired. She's out. Like it's time to do something. And so I made sure I made the call. We went forward with everything. It was already too late. Like had to go with D10 and everything. It was already too late to just give her orange juice or something to fight her. But there was a moment while we were waiting on medics to arrive where like, even though I know she's pre-seizure, she's about to seize, like not cognitively there, is not going to have any memory of it, I still like grabbed her hand and held on to her, and I was like, hey, I'm right here. Like I like very emotional response, even though I know it's not going to be picked up on one bit.
Right.
So yeah, I think there is quite a difference there.
And that's where I feel like in those situations I'm just going to be like, well, she's out, whatever. Right. Like I've done what I'm supposed to do. Keep an eye on her, of course. Right. But yeah, it's going to be less of that personal response.
Right.
So that's the only thing I can say is like, there's nothing wrong with the personal response. It's good because I think people, specifically in medical situations, probably do receive and pick up more than what we realize a lot of times. However, in emergency situations, you can't always afford to have that personal response. You have to detach to make the best choice. So that would be, like, off the top of my head, one of the, a quick difference of the flip side of things.
That is an amazing difference. Yeah. Like, John, how that is so, like, sweet of you. It's like you're like, eye roll. You're like, yeah, you were there emotionally for them, and that was, like, really important. And that was, like, really cute. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
Oh. Well, the ESTP is more, like, logical about it and just dealing with the facts without getting overly sentimental. And so thank you, everyone, for coming out for this panel. I had a really, like, awesome time learning about the differences and similarities between ESFPs and ESTPs, and you guys all contributed your own special part to this. Like, like, thank you, John, for sharing about your story and showing how kind you are and how, like, emotionally there you are for the people that you help. Like, you're not only there, like, physically, but you're there emotionally for those that you care about and those that you are there to help. And that's, like, a really special gift that you bring to the world. Yeah. Like, you bring this certain type of emotional investment, and, like, it's really, like, admirable. I really like that quality about you, John. And thank you, Taylor, for your, like, cutting edge insights into type. Like, some of the things you said were, like, spot on differences between ESTP and ESFP. It's clear that you're, like, the master at knowledge between the differences between these two, and that you've had experience with these two, and it really shows in your observations of them. Like, I was blown away by the comments you made, Taylor. Like, they were very brilliant, and they were, like, clear differentiators, and, like, it was really well spoken. And Taylor has a YouTube channel. You can go check it out. It's called FlowState, and he has his his amazing ideas on that channel. And Marianne, you're a very sweet friend of mine, and I really appreciate you. Your type 2-ness shows when you're just a kind soul all around. So, like, thank you for being that for me.
And also, really quick, before I give you, like, the attention back, Joyce's birthday is in 1 hour. I mean,
it's in 2 minutes my time.
Oh my God! Okay, we have to close it out once, like, you've turned 24. Okay, so sorry, continue.
For sure, that would be a momentous moment. And yeah, Daniel Storm, thank you for, like, being a part of one of my favorite typology websites, PsychologyJunkie, which you guys should go check out as well. And basically, you're like a really, like, you offer really, like, practical examples of your type. Like, you brought out, like, real moments where you showed your type, and, like, it's really good to have those, like, practical applications.
Happy birthday! It's officially your birthday. Your time.
Ah, happy birthday, Joyce!
Yay! Our favorite INFJ besides Susan. Okay, they tied.
Yeah, thank you for the happy birthday. And so
she's like, I'm an introvert. Don't make this about me.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for having me on here, Joyce. It's always fun to be a part of your videos and get to chat with all the other guests you have on your panel. So it's fun for me.
It's a very lively time. And thank you, Jethro, for coming on and being a wise, insightful sage. Bringing your insightful nature onto whatever you participate in. Teaching us about the meaning of life and existence itself. And avoiding questions about yourself, Jethro. That's
the ESTP way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're such an INFJ. God bless every one of us. That's basically it.
Yeah. It was nice chatting with you all. Remember, go check out Taylor, Jethro, and PsychologyJunkie. They're all great. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye all.